It is November 11th, 1939. Canadian doctor Norman Bethune's life is about to come to a tragic end after saving the lives of thousands of soldiers in rural China. Despite cutting his finger and causing infection to run throughout his body, Dr. Bethune continued to work on the operating table for 3 days and 3 nights without any rest, food, or sleep. His story wasn't known to his birth country of Canada until the year of 1973, when China opened itself up to the rest of the world again. And after Pierre Elliott Trudeau, yes, he's the father of Justin Trudeau, paid a visit to Beijing and visited Chair Mao himself. And Mr. Trudeau will learn about the legacy and impact of Dr. Bethune on modern China. This is his story. Dr. Norman Bethune. He's known in Chinese as Bai Qiu'en. Every single Chinese person knows about this name. He's one of the most legendary and one of the most well-respected foreigners in Chinese history. His photos and stories are in every single Chinese textbook. His stories are incorporated into every curriculum. His face is on Chinese coins, Chinese paper bills, stamps, posters. Even Chairman Mao Zedong himself, alongside with his right-hand man, legendary figures like Zhou Enlai and Zhu De, have all publicly praised Dr. Bethune for his work in China. He's worshipped in China as a hero by all of its 1.4 billion citizens. So, what makes this Canadian doctor so special? Norman Bethune was born in the small town of Gravenhurst in the province of Ontario, Canada. In 2024, the population is just over 12,000 people. And Dr. Bethune, he specialized in thoracic surgery. And he was advocate for socialized medicine and free universal healthcare for all of the citizens. Dr. Bethune has family roots in the Highlands of Scotland. His father studied medicine at King's College at the University of Toronto. Dr. Bethune will go on to graduate from Owen Sound Collegiate in the year of 1907. He would go on to study biochemistry and physiology at the University of Toronto. He would return to University of Toronto in 1912 to study medicine. He paused these studies in 1914 when World War I, or back then it was known as the Great War, broke out in Europe following the assassination of Franz Ferdinand. He would go on to join the Canadian Army's No. 2 Field Ambulance Unit, and unfortunately he was wounded by a shrapnel during one of the battles. After recovering, he would be repatriated back to Canada on October of 1915. Where he would complete his medical degree, and he received his MD in the year of 1916. In the years that followed, Dr. Bethune would travel to work at the Chatham Hospital in the United Kingdom, also at the Hospital for Sick Children, traveling across Europe. He also worked in Detroit, Michigan. Dr. Bethune once contracted tuberculosis in the year of 1926. Back then, the treatment for tuberculosis was a total bed rest in a sanatorium. And while resting, Dr. Bethune, he read about his radical treatment for tuberculosis at the time. It's called pneumothorax. This method involves artificially collapsing the lung, and this allows the lung to rest and heal itself. The physicians thought this procedure was too risky, but Dr. Bethune insisted on having the operation performed, and he was able to make a full, complete recovery, and he's now living on just one healthy lung. Afterwards, Dr. Bethune would become a surgeon at McGill University's Royal Victoria Hospital located in Montreal, Quebec. In order to advocate for universal healthcare in Canada, Dr. Bethune traveled to the Soviet Union in the year of 1935 to observe their free healthcare system. He would go on to join the Communist Party of Canada. After the breakout of the Spanish Civil War in the year of 1936, Dr. Bethune traveled to Spain, and he was able to set up a mobile transfusion center where he would take the blood donation for civilians and use them to save the lives of the soldiers on the battlefield. After returning to Canada in the year of 1937, Dr. Bethune wrote the following poem: "And this same pallid moon tonight, which writes so quietly, clear and high, the mirror of our pale and troubled gaze, raised the cool Canadian sky. Above the shattered mountain tops, last night, rose low and wild and red, reflecting back on her illuminated shield, the blood bespattered faces of the dead. To that pale disk, we raise our clenched fists, and those nameless dead, our vows renew, comrades who fought for freedom and the future of the world, who died for us. We will remember you. In 1938, Dr. Bethune would travel to the Yan'an region of China. This is where Chairman Mao Zedong and the Chinese Communist Party was stationed after escaping 5 encirclements by the Kuomintang and surviving the legendary 10,000-kilometer long or 6,200 miles long march. The march lasted for over 1 year. Dr. Bethune would personally meet with Chairman Mao, and he also worked alongside another Lebanese doctor by the name of George Hatem while communicating with Chinese soldier Nie Rongzhen as their interpreter. China during this time was under brutal attack by Imperial Japan. The northern 3 provinces have all been annexed, and they would become the new Manchukuo. The port of Shanghai was lost after a brutal 3.5-long battle, which saw between 300,000 to 400,000 Chinese casualties. Upwards of another 300,000 Chinese civilians would be massacred during the infamous rape of Nanking. The city of Wuhan would fall, even with 1 million Chinese soldiers defending the city. Dr. Bethune would become a special emergency battlefield surgeon. He did not distinguish between any sides in the war, stating that medicine, as we are practicing it, it is a luxury trade. We're selling bread at the price of jewels. Let us take the profit, the private economic profit, out of medicine, and purify our profession of rapacious individualism. Let us say to the people not, how much have you got, but how best can we serve you? In July of 1939, Dr. Bethune was appointed the medical advisor to the Shanxi-Hebei border region, stationed alongside the 8th Army, or in Chinese known as Balujun. Dr. Bethune would perform countless surgeries on the battlefield, sometimes working many days and nights without any rest. He would go on to save the lives of hundreds, perhaps thousands of Chinese troops on the battlefield. On October 29th of 1939, while removing bone fragments from the injured leg of a Chinese soldier, Dr. Bethune would cut his middle finger, leading to a nasty infection. However, he would not even take one short rest and continued to work for another 3 days and 3 nights, until November 1st. While he was on the operating table, treating a soldier's erysipelas, his finger wound would become infected. At this point, Dr. Bethune has been working for over 3 days and nights without rest, so he was suffering from extreme fatigue and malnutrition. He would unfortunately contract septicemia, which is a skin blotching and inflammation condition due to sepsis. Dr. Bethune tragically passed away on November 12, 1939. There has been multiple versions of Dr. Bethune's final words, since he could not write during his final days, and there was only one Chinese translator with him. And this is one of the most accepted translations of Dr. Bethune's final work. Today I feel really unwell. Probably I have to say farewell to you forever. Please send a letter to Tim Buck, the General Secretary of the Canadian Communist Party. The address is number 10 Welling Street, Toronto, Ontario, Canada. Please also make a copy for Committee on International Aid to China and Democratic Alliance of Canada. Tell them I am very happy here. Please give my Kodiak Retina 2 camera to Comrade Shafei Dr. Norman Bethune approximately 4:20 p.m. on November 11th, 1939. This was his final entry. In 1973, after Prime Minister Pierre Elliott Trudeau's visit to Beijing and learning about Dr. Bethune's legacy in China, the government of Canada purchased a Presbyterian church in Gravenhurst, Dr. Bethune's hometown. Dr. Bethune had been declared a person of national historic significance in the year of 1976, and the restored building was opened to the public, known as Bethune Memorial House. In Chairman Mao Zedong's own words, Comrade Bethune's spirit, his utter devotion to others, without any thought of self, was shown in his boundless sense of responsibility and his boundless warm-heartedness towards all comrades and the people. Every communist must learn from him. Although Comrade Bethune and I only met once, afterwards he wrote me many letters, but I was very busy and I wrote him only one letter and do not even know if he ever received it. I am deeply grieved over his death. Now we are all commemorating him, which shows how profoundly his spirits inspire everyone. We must all learn the spirit of absolute selflessness from him. With this spirit, everyone can be useful to the people. A man's ability may be great or small, but if he has this spirit, he is already noble-minded and pure, a man of moral integrity and above vulgar interests, a man who is of value to the people.